Hello everyone. Obviously you've clicked on this, wanting to watch Mannequin of the Month for November 2025, and I will be getting on to the topic we're going to be covering here in just a minute. A couple of things I wanted to mention at the start of the video. One is to sort of give a month's notice. December is going to be a little bit disrupted, as it usually is. I'm a volunteer at a steam railway, and I'm involved with running Santa trains in December, so weekends are generally pretty busy, so there'll probably be less time to film, and because of that the schedule probably won't be as reliable in December. There probably won't be a video every week in December. So just to let you know, as a heads up, December will probably be a little bit quieter. There will be a Mannequin of the Month at the start of the month, and then generally I do a Mannequin of the Month in January, and then a couple of weeks into January everything picks up again. So it's that run up to Christmas and then the immediate sort of Christmas New Year period. Things tend to be a little bit quieter on the channel, and then from there things pick up again moving into January, the middle of January. So just a heads up here ahead of time. I also wanted to let everybody know, those that may be interested, about my secondary channel, REME Military Miscellany, which I'll pop a link in a pinned comment down below. The reason I point that out is obviously in December, with things being a bit quieter, I thought I'd mention that. It's a channel which I've set up to cover topics which aren't really appropriate for Rifleman More, which is militaria and some other elements of sort of my collection from other countries basically. So from the Eastern Bloc, from East Germany, from Argentina, so Argentine kit, which obviously has turned up on the channel previously when talking about the Falklands and so forth, but it's covered a little bit more broadly over on the secondary channel, and there's Dutch kit and stuff talked about over there as well, and a little bit of Iraqi kit as well. So a real mix. I suppose the Iraqi kit fits in best with what we're going to be talking about here. I will be expanding that area of interest on the secondary channel going forward as well. So REME Military Miscellany, link down below. If you think it might be of interest, do go and have a look over there. And as I say, if you're short of something to watch in December, that channel, there's quite a bit of stuff already uploaded over there, and I will be continuing steady uploads over there as well, as and when I can. So, with all of the housekeeping done at the front there, we'll get into Mannequin of the Month now. And the topic we're talking about today was, of course, chosen via a poll over on Patreon. It's the corporal tier over there, gets to vote each month on what's going to be covered. And what came top of the poll this month was the kit of a craftsman in the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, REME, serving in the Gulf in late 1990. So we'll say November 1990, obviously, to sort of fit in with the Mannequin of the Month, the month we're dealing with here. And I was quite interested to cover this. It's one of the reasons I put it on the poll as an option. I've seen several photographs effectively showing the kit we have here, or slight variations thereof, which is an interesting mix of overalls and then also the web equipment and so forth. So we're going to run through exactly what's on the Mannequin here. It seems to be a method of carrying a respirator and the MBC suit and so forth with very little else carried. Again, we'll talk about that in a minute as well, but the web equipment is really the only way of doing this if issued 1958 pattern. Obviously with the PLCE, you could in theory use the side pouches from the Bergen rucksack on their own separate yoke, and just the respirator have a sack, but obviously units such as REME, supporting units and so forth, were still being issued the 1958 pattern. So what we have here is basically a method of using 1958 pattern to carry MBC suit and the respirator. We're going to talk through that as we look at what's on the Mannequin here. We'll start at the top as we normally do. We have here a desert DPM version of the hot weather hat, which I've made a video on not that long ago, looking at various variations of these. This is a particular variant with small eyelets for ventilation in the crown, but it's basically a fairly standard example of the British hot weather hat of the period, but obviously made in desert DPM. So probably the one concession to desert DPM we'll see here is the hat. A concession to the operations in hot weather is the sweat rag worn at the neck here, as you can see, just loosely wrapped around the neck there. And then the uniform worn, the clothing worn, is the one-piece overall in olive drab, as you can see here, olive green. And this is the 80s, early 90s period overall used by the British Army. It has snaps or press studs throughout. So you can see these small chrome press studs. You can see that the back side of one at the collar here, and then the male section there. You can see these are fairly simple sort of crimp in place press studs, and then on the pockets here and all the way down the front as well. And we'll see there is a leg pocket as well that uses one of these. So this is the typical pattern of overall worn at the time, and shows up in many photographs of troops conducting maintenance and so forth in the Gulf. As I say, somewhat unusually, the web equipment is worn over this. It's not typical of every photograph to see web equipment carried as we have here. In many instances, it's just the respirator haversack on its own separate strap around the waist, but there are certainly a few photographs out there showing this configuration, and that's what I wanted to talk about here. So we have obviously the yoke for the equipment here attached onto the pouches, supporting the belt, supporting the waist belt at the front. Obviously the yoke straps loop down through these rings on the back of the pouches. The pouches are clipped onto the belt, and that way the belt and the rest of the equipment is supported. In the photographs I've seen, the pouches are either very lightly loaded or aren't carrying any ammunition at all, but are essentially being used as sort of brace attachments to support the belt. And obviously, without these, you need the little brace attachments which were made for use with 1958 pattern, but generally speaking, REME, you'd expect to be carried some ammunition, some of the time at least, and in this case, as I say, the pouches are used for that purpose. They're either carrying a very light load of ammunition, judging from the photographs, or no ammunition at all. So we have the two ammunition pouches at the front there, attached onto the belt, as I say, directly supported by the yoke. You can see on this hip here the respirator haversack, which we'll have a closer look at in a minute, and round on the other hip we have the water bottle. We'll talk about the various other elements of kit carried on the web equipment as we move this round. That's a look at the front of the mannequin. We'll move this round now and have a look at the right hand side. So looking at the right hand side of the mannequin here, you can see the hat at the top here. We have the two ventilation eyelets in the crown there, which I mentioned before. This is just a variant of the Desert DPM hats, which was manufactured at the time. On the shoulder here, you can see the epaulette coming down, and if we look down at the cuff here, there's actually adjustment in using two male press studs on the inner part of the cuff there, and then a single female press stud there allows that to be adjusted in as required. And then we have the water bottle pouch carried round on the hip here. It's interesting to note there's only one water bottle carried in this instance. Certainly in the Gulf, it was quite common for two water bottles to be issued, and sometimes you see 1958 pattern pouches on the new PLC equipment because of that, and various different sort of mixes and matches of kit because of that. In this instance, as I say, we have only one water bottle issued, possibly because of obviously REME's operations. You're not that far from base water supply and so forth. That may have been the reason in the photographs I'm sort of referencing from, that you only have the one water bottle carried. As I say, just a difference from, you see cross kit used in the Gulf, depending on the unit and depending on the specific operations. So water bottle carried there, obviously the standard 1958 pattern water bottle and cup in the standard second pattern 1958 pattern water bottle pouch round on the hip there. You can also see this sort of side here of the cape carrier or poncho roll carrying the NBC suit and the NBC boots at the back here. So we'll turn this round now and have a look at the back and talk about that in a little bit more detail. And you can also see the helmet stowed on carried on the web equipment there as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about that too. So looking at the back here, hat at the top here, the yoke coming down for the 1958 pattern equipment, and we see at the back here carried on the equipment and in the equipment the NBC suit and the NBC boots here. Now, it's my supposition that the reason for this configuration of equipment was to allow for the carriage of the NBC suit and the NBC boots in addition to the respirator haversack. The respirator haversack does have its own integral strap which can be carried over the shoulder or around the waist, and that was the standard operating procedure for most units in the Gulf. But the photographs I've referenced this from, the respirator haversack is still being carried on the equipment, which does turn up in certain early photographs in the Gulf of other units being deployed there as well. But most seem to have fairly quickly swapped over to carrying the respirator haversack separately. There's even photographs I've seen of this sort of configuration, the haversack is generally carried on the equipment. So as I say, I assume this setup is so that you can carry both the NBC suit, the boots, and the respirator haversack, and obviously water as well, by wearing the web equipment. And with 1958 pattern, as I say, with a lack of sort of the side pouches and so on, you see with the PLC equipment, the person load carrying equipment, which comes in later on, this is really the only way of doing it, and the standard way of doing it as well. It's very common in the Gulf to see the boots and the cape carrier used in this sort of setup. It's more common to see more equipment carried on the back of the belt, and as I say, in this case, you've lost all that. You've lost the rear pouches. There are no water bottle pouches sort of serving that purpose at the back here. It's just the cape carrier and the boots bungeed and strapped onto the back of the equipment and carried in the cape carrier. And as I say, that sort of again feeds into my supposition that this is the main reason the equipment's being worn and carried, is to allow for the carriage of these components in addition to the respirator. It also allows for the carriage of the helmet, which has simply been clipped around the vertical strap on the yoke there, as you can see. So it's there and to hand if needed, but it's carried up out of the way at the back there, sort of tucked up on top of the boots and on top of the respirator haversack. So it's ease of access. You can reach around and undo the snap on the chin strap easily enough if needed, but it's out of the way and allows you to work by being carried on the back of the equipment here. So that's what we have on the back here: the helmet, the MBC suit in the cape carrier, and the MBC boots bungeed around the belt and the cape carrier to hold that all together as a unit there on the back of the equipment. We'll move this around now and have a look at the left-hand side. So looking at the left-hand side here, we've talked about the hat and the overalls and so forth. We lift the arm out of the way here. We can see the respirator haversack carried on the belt of the equipment. It does have a belt loop in the back, but you can see the integral strap here, which has been tucked out of the way, which would mean this could be carried independently of the equipment. But as I say, in this case, it is attached, which is unusual to see in the Gulf, but it's taken directly from photographs, as I say. And in here, you'd have the S10 respirator, the decontamination kit, you'd have your combi pens and so forth carried in here, which are anti-nerve agent, basically. So you'd have the various decontamination elements of the equipment in there, as well as the respirator and a spare canister, a spare filter for it as well, all carried in the haversack there, round on the hip. So, as I say, that's what's carried there, round on the left hip, and obviously essential to have nearby in the Gulf. The reason for carrying all of this equipment, of course, is the heightened threat, the perceived heightened threat of chemical warfare, the chemical attack in the Gulf. And there were quite a few false alarms, it's fair to say, and obviously there was certainly some contamination from damaged chemical weapons stores and chemical weapons facilities. And the fear regarding chemical weapons was very much justified, really, given what had been going on in the Iran-Iraq war in the 1980s. So it's quite reasonable that there was a great fear of chemical attack in the Gulf, and the reason that this kit had to be kept close at hand at all times was that heightened threat of chemical warfare and biological warfare to a degree as well. So there it is. That's the left-hand side of the Mannequin, and I think we've covered everything there that I wanted to talk about. So I hope you found it interesting looking at this. Certainly a little bit different from previous videos I've made looking at kit from the Gulf. REME are interesting in that regard. Certainly there are some examples of this sort of setup as we have on the Mannequin here, and I wanted to recreate this and talk about it. So hopefully it has been of interest. Hopefully it has been interesting watching this video. If you have found it interesting and you'd like to see more of this sort of thing, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And whether you're newly subscribing or you've previously subscribed, please do make sure you hit the little bell, the notification button down below. That will of course alert you when I upload future videos. If you really like my uploads and you would like to support the channel, or perhaps vote each month on what's going to be covered in Mannequin of the Month, Patreon is linked down below, and it's the corporal tier, as mentioned at the beginning of the video. It's the corporal tier over on Patreon, which gives you the chance to vote each month in what's going to be covered in Mannequin of the Month. And there's PayPal link down there as well, and obviously the lower tiers and Patreon, just very much appreciated in terms of supporting the channel. Everybody who does support the channel using those methods, as I always say, it really is greatly appreciated. Thank you all very much indeed. If you'd like to follow the channel on social media, where there will of course be photographs of this posted up, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter are all linked down below. And if you'd like to get in touch with me, you don't really use social media, there is an email address in the video description as well. That's everything for this video. So until next time, bye for now.